All right. Hello, my name is Hayden Brown. I'm in Group 10, and our group topic was on the Big Bang Theory, and my subtopic was natural and supernatural theories of the origin of the universe. All right, so the Big Bang Theory is one of the most commonly heard scientific theories in today's society. Regardless of how much knowledge someone might have of the scientific community, almost anyone is familiar with the term Big Bang. However, there are a lot of misconceptions about the Big Bang Theory by the public today. For example, there are some people that just believe it is a popular television show about a group of nerds. An even more common idea of the Big Bang Theory that is falsely believed is that the Big Bang explains the origin of the universe. I myself even believed this to be true up until the beginning of this class in August. This is the very purpose of our group's research paper, to explain and prove the Big Bang Theory. As for my particular part of the paper, I felt that in order to fully grasp a complete understanding of the Big Bang, it was very important to examine what possibly could have come beforehand. As I mentioned earlier, the Big Bang is not an explanation for the actual beginning of the universe. Instead, it is a proposed explanation of what happened directly after the universe was born. As according to research, quote, our universe is thought to have begun as an infinitesimally small, infinitely hot, infinitely dense something, a singularity. Where did it come from? We don't know. Why did it appear? We don't know. It is my goal to attempt to provide several different possible answers to the questions at the end of that quote. There are thousands, if not more, of theories that have been created to explain what happened right before the Big Bang. I will look into both supernatural and natural hypotheses that supposedly have an explanation for what happened at the very start of the universe. I will start off with the idea of supernatural creation by some sort of otherworldly power because I am most familiar with it. Most religions believe that their individual god or gods are somehow responsible for the universe's birth. One example of a very popular religion in the world is Christianity. While there are many different branches and sects of Christianity, probably the one common belief is that God created the universe. According to the BBC, the main point of creationism, which Christians believe, are all life was created by the actions of God. All the forms of life existing today were created by the actions of God. The organisms created by God can't produce new forms of organism. Only God can do this. According to Genesis, the first chapter of the Bible, God created everything, including the universe itself. One of early civilization's most powerful colonies was that of the ancient Egyptians. Because of their well-preserved customs, researchers have been able to gain an extensive look into what the Egyptians believed. It turns out they were polytheistic, which means they believed in many different gods rather than just one. According to researchers, quote, the Egyptians had many tales about how the world began. According to one legend, it started with an ocean and darkness. Then a mound of dry land rose up and the sun god Re appeared, who created light and all things. Another version has the sun god emerging from a sacred blue lotus that grew out of the mud, while a third has him appearing as a scarab beetle in the eastern horizon. End quote. Finally, there are the beliefs of Buddhism. However, instead of most religions, where there exists a definite creator, quote, Buddhists believe that the life is both endless and subject to impermanence, suffering, and uncertainty. These states are called the Tilikana, or the three signs of existence. Existence is endless because individuals are reincarnated over and over again, experiencing suffering throughout many lives, end quote. There are obviously many different religions that were followed in the past and that are followed in the present, each of them having their own method in which the universe was created, and these are just a few of them. Now I would like to focus on the natural theories of the origin of the universe. When doing my research, I found an extremely large variety of websites that all briefly talked about what they believed happened in the beginning. However, none of these sources really grabbed my attention because they were very confusing and didn't really convince me. I did stumble upon a piece created by Stephen Hawking, however, that I believe provides a great insight into the different theories of the origin of the universe. Thus, the rest of this paper will focus on Hawking's article, both on his explanation of others' beliefs and his own personal belief. One proposed idea is that there never was a beginning to the universe. For example, Aristotle, the most famous of the Greek philosophers, believed the universe had existed forever. Something eternal is more perfect than something created. He suggested that, that the reason we progressed was that floods, or other natural disasters, had repeatedly set civilization back to the beginning. The idea that there is no definite beginning to the universe as we know it is very disheartening to most, and it is probably why this isn't a more commonly supported theory. Trying to accept the fact that there was always something and never nothing is almost impossible, at least for me. Hawking mentions many different people with all sorts of theories that utilize a world with no definite beginning. However, Hawking performed research for his PhD thesis that, quote, predicted that the universe had a beginning, end quote. Hawking comically mentions an exchange with the Pope that he had. Quote, at a conference on cosmology in the Vatican, the Pope told the delegates that it was okay to study the universe after it began, but they should not inquire into the beginning itself, because that was the moment of creation and the work of God. I was glad he didn't realize I had presented a paper at the conference suggesting how the universe began. I didn't fancy the thought of being handed over to the Inquisition, like Galileo. End quote. While this is a somewhat chuckling passage, it is also important because it highlights the supernatural theories that I mentioned earlier. From a scientific perspective, Hawking presents a couple different ways in which the universe began. One method requires the reader to, quote, suppose the beginning of the universe was like the South Pole of the Earth, with degrees of latitude playing the role of time. The universe would start as a point at the South Pole. As one moves north, the circles of constant latitude, representing the size of the universe, would expand. To ask what happened before the beginning of the universe would become a meaningless question, because there is nothing south of the South Pole. End quote. He goes on to explain that, quote, the same laws of nature hold at the South Pole as in other places. This would remove the age-old objection to the universe having a beginning, that it would be a place where the normal laws broke down. The beginning of the universe would be governed by the laws of science. End quote. While this is somewhat unclear, Hawking provides an image that makes the concept more understandable, stating that, quote, the spontaneous quantum creation of the universe would be a bit like the formation of bubbles of steam in boiling water. The idea is that the most probable histories of the universe would be like the surface of the bubbles. Many small bubbles would appear and then disappear again. These would correspond to many universes that would expand but would collapse again while still of microscopic size. They are possible alternative universes, but they are not of much interest since they do not last long enough to develop galaxies and stars, let alone intelligent life. A few of the little bubbles, however, grow to a certain size at which they are safe from recollapse. This image provides a very interesting idea of what could have happened at the famed beginning. However, this is still just a theory. The one line from this passage that resonated with me was, not everything is solved. The only thing we know about the beginning of the universe is that we don't know anything. When I began this research paper, my intentions were to examine the different ways that the universe could have logically began. The Big Bang explains what happens right after the start of the universe, but there are no confirmed explanations of what occurred directly beforehand. The further I looked into Stephen Hawking's writings, I realized that part of the reason religions are so heavily followed today is that we currently have absolutely no idea what actually happened. Supernatural creation is pretty much the only thing at this point that many believe happened, yet this is obviously something we can't prove. To summarize, the origin of the universe is perhaps the greatest mystery of all time, and we most likely will never know for sure what actually took place. Thank you for watching.